What's going on, fam, and welcome to another Icon Athletics live stream. So today, I'm going to be going over some of the top tips and tricks that I've picked up pertaining to getting a higher quality sleep or better quality sleep. But before that, I wanted to kind of explain how I came across these tips and tricks, right? And what actually caused me to do a bit more of a deep dive on sleep quality, right? And what affected sleep quality. So this actually came about in my own personal fitness journey when I did my first quote unquote bulk. It was, I believe, 2018 to 2019. I did a 6-month all-in bulk where I was consuming roughly in and around 4,500 to 5,000 calories, 6 days a week. And then one day I would drop it down to about 2K to, help my body to just allow my body to just fully digest all of the food that I had eaten the days prior. Now, throughout that time frame, you could imagine I did a lot of research on how to build muscle naturally, because my main objective, again, throughout that growth phase, that bulking season, was to pack on as much muscle mass as I could. And I had never really gone, quote unquote, all in on my food and really, pushed my metabolism to its limits, which I do not recommend. By the way, I don't recommend that you do go all in, at least until you're a little bit deeper into, your fitness journey and you've crushed a few goals along the way. But yeah, that being said, when I did go through that quote unquote bulk, one of the main topics that kept coming up in regards to natural bodybuilding was sleep, right? And so I did a bit of a deep dive on the importance of sleep, the components of sleep, and all of the things that might be affecting my sleep. Because ultimately I knew that, it wasn't feasible for me to actually get more sleep because, we all know we have a busy schedule, especially living in North America. Things are always on the go. So it wasn't feasible for me to actually get more sleep. So I shifted the focus on, okay, how can I get higher quality sleep, right? And what I came to find was that, number one of the main things that it was kind of like this mindset shift that, I had made after literally decades of living on this earth was starting to gauge my sleep by 90 minutes, okay? Because there is technically 4 stages to sleep. Right? The N1 stage where you're transitioning from wakefulness, it's a very light sleep. It's easy to be, awoken, and sometimes you get that feeling of falling. You've probably know what I'm talking about, where you're kind of like, you get up and you're like, whoa, like I just felt like I was falling. And then the second stage is still a light sleep, but this is when your heart rate typically starts to slow down, and your body temperature starts to drop, right? Then the third stage, which is deep sleep, right? This is when your brain gets the delta waves. And this is essentially like the point in the sleep cycles that you want to reach, right? You do want to get to REM, rapid eye movement sleep, when you're dreaming and stuff. But deep sleep it's crucial for actually, feeling replenished the next day. Now, that being said, each one of those 4 cycles is 90 minutes, okay? So I don't know about you, but growing up, I was always taught to kind of gauge my sleep by the hour, right? And so I would always calculate my sleep throughout the night based upon that. But then when I came to find that it's a full sleep cycle, okay, so out of those 4 stages of sleep, a full sleep cycle is 90 minutes, right? So now you could imagine that if, just hypothetically speaking, you get 8 hours of sleep, you're technically waking up in the middle of a sleep cycle. So you've probably felt it before where, you clocked 8 hours or 10 hours of sleep and you still feel kind of like groggy and tired. You're like, why? Like I slept enough. And that is essentially why. You're actually waking up through the middle of a sleep cycle, right? Now, that being said, as soon as you start to gauge your sleep time by the 90-minute, you start to realize that it's basically just increments of an hour and a half, right? So if you're going to take a power nap, you could technically do a half a sleep cycle, so 45 minutes. Don't do 30-minute power naps. Do 45-minute power naps. Hour and a half long power naps. 3-hour long naps, and then 4.5 hours of sleep would actually serve you better than, again, getting 7 hours of sleep. And then 6 hours, 7.5, 8, 9 hours, right? And just starting to gauge your sleep by full sleep cycles. So 90 minutes. That is the first kind of tip or trick that I wanted to go over here, because it's had quite a profound effect on my own performance and my own gains. And it was, again, a mindset shift that I made a few years, and it's been an absolute game changer. Now, moving forward, okay, to all of my substance lovers when it comes to alcohol and marijuana, right? Because I've been a marijuana smoker since I was about 15 years old. And again, going back to the bulk, you can imagine eating 4,500 plus calories a day. I needed something to help entice my appetite. So I was smoking some marijuana. But now what I came to find, okay, was that much like alcohol, because we all know that alcohol sedates you and it does affect your sleep, right? You wake up, even if you sleep sufficient amount of time, it doesn't matter. You're going to wake up groggy if you were impaired by alcohol the night before. But what I came to find was that marijuana actually does the same thing. So marijuana, the THC aspect of marijuana, is technically a sedative, right? And for years, I was accustomed to smoking and immediately going to bed because it would help me kind of wind down and fall asleep. But throughout that bulk, I made that shift, right? And although I was still consuming cannabis products, or THC specifically, I was now pushing it earlier on in the evening versus like smoking and then going to bed. So just as an example, I'd give myself 2.5 to 3 hours time from the point that I smoked to the point that I went to bed, okay? Because a lot of people don't know that weed will actually sedate you and affect your sleep, right? You're not gonna reach deep sleep or REM sleep if you are sedated by either alcohol or marijuana. So going to sleep immediately upon smoking is not a good idea. Cut that out, because that will affect your sleep in a negative manner. Now, the third, and honestly one of the most easiest things to actually implement and change is limiting not only your blue light from your screens, okay, at least 30 minutes before bed, in my opinion, but also turning your phone on airplane mode. Because if you think about it, the vast majority of us, I'm willing to bet everybody who's watching this, uses their phone as an alarm clock, right? Now, because you're using it as an alarm clock, I'm also willing to bet that you have it charging on your charger by your bedside, right by your head, okay? Now think about how many frequencies are bouncing off that phone right beside your head while you sleep, okay? So all of those EMFs are running through your brain and your body as you sleep. And you got to think, it's self-service, it's Bluetooth, it's Wi-Fi, right? And there's actually been studies done that when you connect your phone to the charger, it actually amplifies all of these connections. So one of the most simplest things you can do to actually increase your sleep quality from tonight is airplane mode in your phone, okay? Because DND will only stop the notifications. It's not going to turn off all of the connections that are essentially pinging off of your phone all day long. So you have to airplane mode your phone, right? It's not just about the notifications. It's actually about shutting down all of those connections while you sleep. And believe you me, it's been, I don't even know, like maybe, I'm gonna say closer to a year now that I've been airplane moding my phone before bed, and it's had a profound effect on the quality of sleep that I'm having throughout the night. So just to recap, the 3 tips that I've dropped so far are, number 1, start gauging your sleep by 90 minutes, because that is actually how long each of the 4 stages of sleep are. It's a 90-minute cycle, okay? So that's number 1. Number 2, limiting or completely eradicating marijuana or alcohol before bed, because both of the substances actually sedate you and don't allow you to get into deep sleep and REM sleep. Number 3, shut down all connections, airplane mode your phone before going to sleep, okay? And then, as kind of a little bonus, limit your screen time or your blue light to 30 minutes prior to going to bed. And, that is probably the easiest, that's the lowest hanging fruit to implement more immediately. But if you can have all 3 of those working in conjunction, collaboratively, I can guarantee you that your sleep will get better. Now, let's talk about how sleep actually affects your muscle gain and your fat loss, okay? So we all know sleep is essential for recovery, right? It's super critical for muscle recovery post-exercise, and it actually helps to increase like the blood flow to the muscles. Now, a lot of people will typically tend to think that you're building the muscle while you're training, which couldn't be farther from the truth. You're actually breaking down the muscle tissues as you train. You're creating little micro tears in your muscles, your muscle fibers, while you're training. So therefore, the point of which you are actually building muscle is while you are at rest. And when is the most restful time of your day? When you're sleeping, right? Now, beyond that, having a sufficient amount of sleep will also impact your insulin sensitivity, your glucose metabolism, and weight management, right? What does that mean? Being insulin sensitive, right, is basically where, you have, let's say like a high carb meal. And if you're insulin sensitive, your body will be able to secrete enough insulin to kind of, balance your levels, and you don't feel that like kind of like lethargy that a lot of people will, myself included, will feel after a high carb or a high sugar meal, right? So you do not want to become insulin resistant, because the second you start to become insulin resistant, it doesn't matter if you have a small amount of carbs or a large amount of carbs, your body is not secreting enough insulin to actually, balance everything out, and you almost immediately start to feel lethargic and, and slow, right? And tired. So that's the second thing that sleep, kind of impacts in regards to your fat loss and your muscle gain. And then thirdly, it affects your appetite hormones. So leptin and ghrelin, right? And most of, I believe leptin is what controls and mitigates your hunger. And then ghrelin is the hunger hormone. It's actually what cues the hunger. Don't quote me. I might be wrong. I don't know. I always get the two confused. But those get thrown out of whack when your sleep is out of whack. Okay. So that's the last thing you want, because, if you've ever put yourself through like a cutting phase or a dieting phase, you know that already naturally you're going to start to feel, certain cravings because you're eating in a deficit, right? Now, the last thing you want to do is also have a compounding effect from your sleep and having your leptin and your ghrelin go out of control, and then those cravings be amplified, right? That is the last thing you want to do. So those are kind of like the three components of how your body is affected, or your fat loss and your muscle gain is affected by sleep, right? Now, hormonally, because I'm not a hormone expert, I don't claim to be one, but hormonally, there's kind of four components that I want to go over that, are naturally occurring in your body and happen to be heavily secreted while you're sleeping, okay? So the first one is growth hormone. So growth hormone actually peaks during deep sleep, so that third cycle of sleep. And this hormone is responsible for repairing tissues, building the muscle, and helping to metabolize fat. Okay, so going back to kind of the cannabis option example, if you are smoking and going to bed and you're not hitting deep sleep, then your growth hormone is essentially being limited, right? So even if let's say you get 4 full cycles of sleep and you miss 2 of them because you're still sedated from the marijuana, that's 2 full sleep cycles that you're missing the secretion of growth hormone, or at least, maximizing the secretion of growth hormone, which will in return impact all of the things that I mentioned earlier. Secondly, testosterone. So testosterone increases during sleep and peaks during REM, so rapid eye movement, that last stage of sleep when you're dreaming, and you're actually, like in La La Land, right? Excuse me. Testosterone, as we all know, is essential for not only your libido, but also your strength. Okay, so it plays an imperative role in you actually developing strength over time. And you guys have heard me mention before that strength, there's a direct correlation with strength and building muscle, because if you can lift in the hypertrophy ranges, rep ranges, or the muscle building rep ranges at a higher capacity or for load, like a heavier weight, then you will be able to build more muscle efficiently, right? Now, the third hormone we're going to go over is cortisol, right? Cortisol is your stress hormone, and it is directly impacted by your sleep. Sleep is actually one of the main factors that will affect your cortisol outside of, your dieting and training or lack thereof. Now, high levels of cortisol are actually linked to insomnia and sleep disruptions. Okay, so in short, you want to mitigate your cortisol, and the best way, again, one of the lowest hanging fruits is it's not the easiest way. I'm not going to say it's the easiest way, but the lowest hanging fruit to actually help control your stress and manage your stress is your sleep. Right. The last one is melatonin. Melatonin regulates sleep-wake cycles. It's affected by light exposure and particularly blue light. Okay, so you will not produce as much melatonin, again, if you are scrolling immediately before bed. But this is also why I never suggest to any of my clients, athletes, people that I work with, or just friends, I never suggest melatonin, okay? Unless it's like an extreme case scenario where like you're already experiencing some level of insomnia and like you've tried everything. At that point, okay, if you need to supplement with some sort of melatonin, then so be it. But outside of that case scenario, I will never recommend melatonin because it is a natural occurring hormone in your body. And just like anything else, if you start to supplement it and your body becomes accustomed to this dosage of melatonin going into your body on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, it's not going to produce melatonin as efficiently, right? Or as abundant as it once would. So I do not suggest supplementing with melatonin. Outside of melatonin, you could do zinc and magnesium. There's a whole bunch of other supplements that you could actually implement before, resorting to melatonin. So in short, well, not that short. This is actually a bit of a longer live stream because this is a deep conversation. Sleep basically affects every single function of your body. And more importantly, your hormones, and your hormones are directly linked to muscle building and your fat loss and just overall health and well-being. And then just to reiterate the 3 tips that I was going over earlier to increase your sleep quality. Number 1, what was number 1? Sorry. Number one, the 90 minutes. So instead of gauging your sleep by the hour, start gauging it by 90 minutes because 90 minutes is how long each stage of sleep lasts. So there's 4 stages of sleep and each cycle is actually 90 minutes. So that's number 1. Number 2, limiting or completely eradicating cannabis or alcohol immediately before bed. I would suggest specifically to marijuana because, again, I am a marijuana smoker myself. I consume cannabis products, specifically THC. Give yourself at least like 2.5 to 3 hours prior to going to bed. Do not smoke or consume THC and then go immediately to bed. And then number 3, shut down the blue light at least 30 minutes before bed. And then put your phone in airplane mode because you do not need those EMFs bouncing off of your brain as you sleep. But yes, that is today's live. I hope you found value out of it. For all of you that showed up and tuned in live, God bless you. For the rest of you, I do hope you catch this on the replay because, again, I did do a deep dive on this and I do think there is a lot of value. All of these things that I have mentioned on today's live have drastically impacted my own personal fitness. And it's something that, just even my health and wellness across the board. Like I'm a completely different person now that I've actually been able to mitigate and control my sleep, the quality of my sleep, right? And I'm blessed enough now that I actually am able to sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. But if not, I do recommend that you should get at least 6 hours of sleep because technically 6 hours of sleep is about 4 sleep cycles. Okay, you want to get through at least 4 sleep cycles. And if not, just remember the 90-minute rule because you do not, you're better off getting through 2 sleep cycles than waking up through 1.5 or 1 3/4, right? But that being said, I am logging off because I'm starving. I need some food in me. I was supposed to eat earlier, but I ended up taking a call instead. So now I gotta go eat. But anyways, Coach Cruz is logging off for now. Peace. Love and all the proteins. May the gains be with you.